Hello everyone. In this lecture, we are going to discuss primitive scheduling. So, the scheduling which takes place when the process switches from running state to ready state or from a waiting state to ready state. It is called as primitive scheduling. So, it means in operating system, the CPU scheduler job is to allocate the process to the CPU for execution. So it has to schedule the processes for execution from the CPU. Okay, so it is the job of the what uh, CPU scheduler. So we have different scheduling algorithm. The first one is here, shortest job first scheduling algorithm. So in this algorithm, associate with each processes. So this algorithm associate with each processes if the process is available. Okay, if the which means if the CPU is in idle state, so it has to execute the processes. And this scheduling is also known as shortest and next CPU burst, because the scheduling is done by examining the length of the next CPU burst of the process rather than its total length. So here we have an example. So it is having four processes, P1, P2, P3 and P4, and CPU time for the process P1 is 3, and for a process P2 it is 5, and for a process P3 it is 2, and process P4 it is 4. So solution for this is by using shortest job first scheduling algorithm. So it has a Gantt chart, and we can display these as P3 in between 0 to 2 time, and P1 in between 2 to 5, and P2 in between 5 to 9, and P4 in between 9 to 14. So if we want to have a waiting time for the processes, so we must assign the processes in ascending order like P1, P2, P3 and P4. So for that, the waiting time for the process P1 will become 0. Okay, so it is the what? It is the behind the time we need to consider. Behind time we need to consider. Whereas for a P2 processor, the waiting time will be 2, and for a P3 processor it will be 5, and for a P4 processor it will be 9. So in order to calculate around time for the process, so we can calculate the round around time for the different processes. For a P3 it will become 0 plus 2, that will become 2, and P1, for a P1 process it will become 2 plus 3. Okay, and here for a P4 process it will become 5 plus 4, and for a P2 it will become 9 plus 5, that will become 14. So then average waiting time. So in order to calculate the average waiting time, we need to take all the values. Those are 0, that is the waiting time for P1, and 2 it is waiting time for P2, and 5 it is waiting time for P3 process, and 9 is the waiting time for P4 processes. We have to all add these all values and divide it by 4 because we have 4 processes here, then it will become 14. And in order to calculate average turnaround time, we need to take all the values of the turnaround time. So those will become 2 plus 5 plus 9 plus 14 divided by 4, and this will become 7.5. So this is the what, the SGP algorithm, and that may be either primitive or non-primitive. It is maybe either primitive algorithm or non-primitive algorithm. So you can consider one more example for the shortest job first algorithm. So here we have, okay, we can analyze this one. So next technique is the next algorithm is the round robin scheduling algorithm. So this type of algorithm is designed only for the time sharing system, and it is similar to the that is FCFS scheduling algorithm with the permission conditions to switch between the processes. A small unit of time called quantum time or the time slice is used to switch between the processes. Then the average waiting time under the round robin policy is quite long. So the consider here an example which is having processes P1, P2, P3 and P4, and CPU time for this for P1 it is 3, P2 it is 5, and for P3 it is 2, and for P4 it is 4. So the time slice between the each processes is 1 millisecond. So we have scheduled here the different processes like P1, P2, P3, P4. So sequential manner. After P4 executed, again P1 will come. So like this, again P1, P2, P3. So if when the CPU is executing P3 processes, when the P1 wants to process, at that time it has to wait till its turn to come. So for that, the waiting time for the processes can be calculated for P1 which is having the schedule between 0 to 1, and also which is having the schedule between 4 to 5. Similarly 8 to 9, the P1 which is having the schedule, and it can execute its process in that particular time only. So for that it will become 0 plus 4 minus 1 plus 8 minus 5, it will become 6. So for similarly the waiting time for the process P2, so the process P2 which is scheduled at in between P1 and in between 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 and 9 and 10 and 13 and 14 in between. So like this, if you calculate the waiting time for a P2, it will become 10. Next, for a process P3, the waiting time will be, it is scheduled in between 2 to 3 and 6 to 7. Okay, like this it has scheduled, and the waiting time will become 5. Similarly for a P4 it will become 9. Then the average time it will become 6 plus 10 plus 5 plus 9 divided by 4 processes, it will become 7.5. So the next concept is task communication. So here in this task communication, a shared memory is an extra piece of the memory, and that is attached to some address spaces for their owners to use. So here there will be a extra memory, and that can be shared between different processes. So all of these processes shares the same memory segments and have access to it. So the race conditions may occur if the memory access are not handled properly. Here the following figure shows the two processes and their address spaces, and here that is yellow color rectangular, it is the shared memory attached to the to both the address spaces and both process 1 and process 2, and those two processes can access this shared memory as if the shared memory is a part of its own address space. Okay, and in some sense the original address space is extended by attaching this shared memory. Thank you.